Hi everyone, I'm Dorothy. We're just gonna wait a little bit for people to trickle in and then we'll get started. Hi, hello. Hi everyone. Got Nala over here. We're just hanging out. Yeah. Hey everyone, this is Nala. She's not feeling super happy today, but we just spent lots of time together, so she'll be around with me as I answer your questions. See you later. She's hopped off. Just gonna wait a little bit for more people to come in and then we'll get started. Hope everyone's having a good day so far. Yeah, let's see some of your comments coming in. Thanks, guys, for saying hey. I'll be talking back and forth with my Goldieblox team as this is going on. So they'll be sending me your guys' questions and comments, and I'm really excited to start this conversation. Been spending a lot of time here, okay, in my apartment, and um, hi everyone. Welcome to the Goldieblox YouTube channel. My name is Dorothy, and I am a microbiologist studying viruses and bats. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys a bit about this whole coronavirus 19 outbreak and help you guys understand all of the maybe confusing information you've been getting and answer the questions that you guys have. So just continue to send us questions, and I'll be really excited to get to them as we continue to have this conversation. Um, I'm in my apartment, as many of you guys are also probably stuck at home right now, and it's been really rough to be away from my friends and away from my work and lab. And the reason why it's so important for us all to take this time to stay at home is that we're really working hard to decrease the spread of this virus. A lot of people are getting infected and getting really sick. And so by staying at home, we're playing our part in helping stop the spread of this virus. So I've set up my whole office here. I'm sure your parents have also set up little at-home offices, just trying to keep things going and being creative on how to keep our lives going as we're spending all of this time at home, really working hard to, help out the people, our doctors and nurses who are taking care of everyone who's getting sick and trying to help them get better. Um, to talk a little bit more about me and what I do, just to get you guys acclimated to me, I am a grad student researcher at Stanford University, and I work in a lab that focuses on studying viruses. And what my research focuses on is understanding how bats can host a lot of really deadly viruses like rabies and SARS, and potentially even this coronavirus without getting sick themselves. And this is really important for us to understand because a lot of viruses that live in bats end up jumping and getting into people. And we want to try to understand how bats are interacting with their microbes or pathogens differently than we are to try to reduce the amount of spread that we're getting from bats and potentially other animals as well. And um, the way that I do this is that I use cells that are harvested from bats and grown in the lab. So we have them in these little petri dishes, and we get to do experiments on them and infect them with different microbes and learn about how they respond to these microbial infections. And so one of the questions that you might have is, what is a virus, right? Like there's been so much talk about this coronavirus, and before I started studying microbiology, I had no idea what a virus is. So, to get everyone on the same page, a virus is a really, really small particle, and it's so small that you can't see it with your eye, and you need really powerful microscopes to be able to see them. And viruses are really diverse. There are tons of them. There are so many types of viruses, and they come in lots of different sizes and shapes. And to give you some examples, viruses can kind of come in these little rod-like forms, kind of similar to this, where they're shaped, kind of spherical, but more elongated. And then they also come in these more spherical shapes, and this is more similar to what the actual coronavirus looks like. And the reason why the coronavirus is called that is because they have these spiky projections on the outside of their membranes that look like crowns, actually. So, hence the name corona. Um, Viruses oftentimes make us sick, but a lot of the times they actually don't make us sick. So you're probably familiar with viruses like the cold or the flu that cause disease in people, but there are so many kinds of viruses that we constantly get exposed to that don't make us sick at all. So across the board, viruses are not something to be super afraid of. And viruses are different from other microbes like bacteria, for example, because they rely 100% on other organisms to live. And without other organisms, they cannot replicate. So, what a virus does is that it actually infects the cell of another organism, like an animal or a plant, and then it uses the cell to be able to make more copies of itself, or virions. And these virions then go on to infect other cells or other organisms, and this is how the virus can get transmitted. And that's why it's so important to practice good hygiene, because you can get virions on your hands um, or breathe it through the air, and that's how you're able to get infected. And it's really important for our immune systems to be able to then recognize these microbes in our bodies and respond and react to them. Another question you might have is whether or not coronavirus actually came from bats. And a lot of scientists are working really hard to get a definitive answer, but we think so. And the reason why we think so is because this coronavirus that's circulating in people is actually really closely related to other coronaviruses that circulate in bats. And so, because of this, we hypothesize or we think that this coronavirus existed in bats and then jumped into another intermediate animal. We think it's actually this little scaly creature called a pangolin. And then from that second animal was able to jump into humans. And we think that happened through close contact with these animals, either by eating them or by handling them or touching them. And so a lot of new information is continuing to come on this. Um, and we're still learning a lot about what the possible transmission route could be. Bats, though, are not the bad guys. And there are a lot of really cool facts that you guys should know about bats. Like, for example, we talk about bats really holistically and we just say bats, but there are actually over 1,000 different species of bats, and they're super diverse. Some live in caves, some live in trees, some hibernate, others don't. They come in lots of different sizes and shapes and have lots of really interesting characteristics. And one misconception that we have about bats actually is that they all drink blood, and this is definitely not true. Most bats actually don't drink blood at all, and some prefer to eat fruits while others prefer to eat things like insects. And bat diets are actually really important because it helps them to provide really, really important services for our environment. So, for example, a lot of species of plants actually rely on bats to pollinate or spread their seeds around. And we really rely on bats to control pests like mosquitoes and other bugs that we don't want to have too many of. So, bats are actually really important to us and definitely need to be protected. And while they do have these viruses that can make us sick, learning more about how bats deal with their viruses can help us to interact with them in ways that won't get us sick in the future. So I love bats. You guys should not be afraid of bats. Bats are are really cool, and I encourage you guys to definitely try to learn as much as you can about bats. You might even have them in your backyard and you don't even know it. Oh, I'm getting a question in. So Derek Morningstar wants to ask, since the coronavirus are known to be reservoirs in certain bats, are there no bats in that family in North or South America, or can North or South American bats give coronavirus to people? That is a really good question, Derek. Um, so as I was mentioning earlier, bats are really diverse. And not only are they diverse in the different ways that they live their lives, like where they eat and sleep, they're also diverse in how they respond to their viruses. And so because of this, it seems like the coronaviruses are really limited to bats in that part of the world, in the Australasia area. And so it's unlikely that bats in North and South America actually have these coronaviruses and would be able to transmit them to people. But that's a serious concern, and I'm really glad that you asked that question, Derek. Thanks. Um, Also, keep sending questions, guys. This is really great. I am loving to hear about what you guys are thinking, what you're concerned about. Um, these are wonderful things to continue to dig deeper into. Um, I am just waiting to get some more questions in from my Goldie team. Sunfrog asked, are bats rodents? Oh, that's such a good question. They look like them, don't they? They're actually not rodents. Um, Bats are in their own entire family of mammals and are different from a lot of other mammals because they're the only mammals that can have self-powered flight. So they're the only mammals that can fly by themselves, which is super cool biologically because we don't understand a whole lot about how bats evolved to be able to fly, and how they're able to handle the different stresses involved with flight that it puts on your body. Claire wants to know, did someone eat a bat and get coronavirus? That is something that I've heard a lot and a really, really good question. Um, I don't think that's likely. I don't think that's how this virus has actually gotten into people, but we really don't know. We don't know for sure what the first case of this was and what the transmission event was between bats and humans. So it is possible that it was through direct contact with a bat, but it's also possible that it was through contact with a different animal that had really close contact with a bat. So we're still learning a lot about this for sure. On to our next question. Valen asks, do bats communicate like dolphins? And do they like each other? Okay, yeah, that's a really good question about bat communication. So bats communicate and can also see through a lot of different noises that we can't hear as people. And so we have to use really fancy equipment to pick up communication between bats. I don't know a whole lot about how dolphins communicate, but I think you're referring to echolocation, which is something that is a similar feature between bats and dolphins. And to answer your question about whether or not they like each other, if you're talking about if bats like each other, I guess we can't say for sure, but a lot of bats really like to live in really big communities, up to more than 1,000 different bats in one cave. So hopefully they do if they're living together like that. Um, Tristan wants to know, do bats suck blood from people? Yeah, that's a really huge concern that a lot of people have, and you see it in the movies with like Dracula and stuff. Actually, the minority of bat species actually suck blood from people, and those bats live in South America and usually prefer to drink blood from things like cows. And it doesn't happen very often that bats actually do try to suck blood from people. But yeah, that would be really scary. Fishy Waver asks, can you get the virus through animal interactions such as a family pet? Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a really good question, especially having Nala here with me. I would, yeah, really value knowing that. So right now, as far as we know, your pets are okay, and it's really unlikely that they'll be able to get infected with this coronavirus. And even if they did, I think it's even less likely that they would be able to then transmit it to you. So I would not worry a whole lot about your dogs, your kitties, your rabbits. It seems like for the most part, they're okay. Steve and Pat Strand ask, will bats in China be harmed due to COVID-19? I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I think a lot of government officials are trying to figure out where this came from and how to stop this from happening again because they really want to protect people. I don't think that harming bats is the answer at all. As I said, bats are super important to us, and I think there would be a lot of really negative consequences from harming bats or trying to kill off large groups of bats. So hopefully the answer to that is no, because bats are super important to us. Michael Levram asks, which species of bat started the coronavirus? That's another really great question. Scientists are working really hard to try to figure that out, but honestly, we really don't know just yet. There are a couple of different bat species that we have been able to find coronaviruses in that are closely related to this virus, but we don't know for sure exactly which bat species it came from and how it got into people. But that's a really important thing for us to know going forward so we can try to figure out how did this happen and how we can stop it from happening again in the future. Beth Deer asked, do you have a favorite bat species? Yes, I do. So my favorite bat species is Pteropus electo. It is also called the flying fox. And it lives in the Australasia area. The reason why I enjoy this bat species so much is because they're huge. You should definitely Google pictures of pteropid bats. They're really big and they have really cute faces and look kind of like dogs. And I think that makes them really endearing. I haven't seen one in person yet, but am really excited to be able to take a trip one day and see them in the wild. They just look absolutely magnificent. Thank you guys for continuing to send in questions. Definitely keep them coming. These are absolutely great. Zoe's Culinary Creations ask, why do bats have viruses like this? Yeah, that is the $1,000,000 question. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this actually. Right now, there seem to be a lot of different reasons why bats are able to host viruses like this. And one of the really big things that we're learning about bats is that their immune responses are really different from ours. And we think the reason that is because of how they've evolved to be able to fly and hibernate and do a lot of other really interesting things with their bodies. And so we think that because bats have evolved a really unique immune system, they're actually able to have a lot of viruses without getting sick the way that you and I do. And so if a bat can have a virus and not get sick, there's not a lot of pressure for the bat or the virus to really no longer coexist. So it seems like bats and viruses have kind of found this equilibrium where the bat is not super bothered by the presence of the virus and the virus gets to continue to replicate and transmit on to other people. Okay, I have another question now coming in from Kristen Penn. My son was wondering if bats might have the cure to COVID because it is a carrier. Okay, great. That is a really good question. They might. That is actually really possible. So, an important part of how our immune systems respond to viruses are with antibodies. And antibodies are these little molecules that our bodies produce to target and fight the virus. And so, if we can learn something about how bats respond to coronaviruses, and potentially how they are able to clear them, maybe even through antibodies, I think it would be possible to find a cure through bats. But other doctors and scientists right now are currently working really, really hard to get a vaccine. And those efforts are independent of bats. So, with or without bats, we are on our way to getting a vaccine. And I think it's really important to explore lots of different intellectual veins to figure out the best way to create a vaccine for this. Nessa B75 asks, how long can bats live for? We're getting tons of bats questions. I love this. Um, the average age of a bat varies by species, but most bats live around 20 years, and some can live to be up to 40 years, which is really, really old when you think about their size and how fast their metabolism is always going. Um, Okay, we have lots of new viewers coming on, so I'm going to introduce myself again. My name is Dorothy. Welcome, guys, to the Goldieblox YouTube channel. And I am a microbiologist studying viruses and bats. And my research focuses on understanding how bats are able to carry so many viruses that are really deadly, like potentially this coronavirus, without getting sick themselves. And the way that I do this is by using cells harvested from bats that are grown in the lab and infecting them with a number of different microbes to see how their immune systems respond to these bugs. Um, so this has been really important for this coronavirus outbreak because there is a potential link between bats and this coronavirus. And we're continuing to learn more about this. And a lot of news is coming out really fast because scientists are just working super hard on trying to get more and more answers. Um, to give you guys an update on some of the big news that's happening today, just like fresh off the press, there's currently about 900,000 cases of coronavirus around the world. And we're also getting a lot of different recommendations from our public health officials on the best ways to protect ourselves and others. And for the last few weeks, we've had a lot of emphasis on only sick people wearing face masks, kind of little things you see people wearing to cover their mouth and nose. And it seems like they're now expanding that recommendation to have more and more people wearing face masks when you go out. And the reason for that is because a lot of people are actually infected with this virus and are asymptomatic or don't show any signs of being sick. And so they're kind of going out thinking that they're totally fine and continuing to infect other people without knowing it. So it seems like it's actually becoming more and more important that more of us do wear these face masks so that we're not infecting other people without being aware of it. And I think as more news continues to come in, it's important to check in with your parents and ask them kind of what the new regulations are, what the new recommendations and guidelines are, because they're continuing to change as we're learning more about this. Um, Before we get started again answering some more questions, which keep them coming, let's talk a bit about hand washing. And I know you guys have heard a lot about this because it's a really important way for us to be able to slow the spread of this virus. So we're going to do a quick demo on hand washing because before this, I didn't realize that I was not washing my hands for long enough. Um, but what you want to do when you wash your hands is to use warm soap and water, and you really want to make sure that you lather everything up and get in between your fingers and underneath your nails and kind of all of the parts that are exposed and touching different surfaces throughout the day. And it's really important that you wash your hands for 20 seconds. And 20 seconds doesn't seem like a really long time, but when you count it out, I promise you it does. Remember, 20 seconds. And what I like to do to remember to wash my hands for 20 seconds is sing a song. So a lot of really popular songs that people have been singing and what I like to sing is the birthday song. And if you go through the birthday song 2 times, then it gets you to that 20 seconds. But other songs that you could sing are the ABCs or This Little Light of Mine. So just do a quick demo of how long 20 seconds of hand washing is. All right, I'm going to count it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Clean hands. Definitely make sure that you're washing your hands as frequently as possible after you're playing with your pets, before and after you eat. Whenever you come back inside from being outside, make sure that you're washing your hands. And also, do your best not to touch your face. This is really hard. I am realizing how much I touch my face. But the reason why that's really important is because when you have virions on your hands and you touch your face, you can get them into your mouth and nose and potentially infect yourself that way. Okay, all right. More questions. Great. Jody Davis asked, are you also a AAAS if then ambassador? And tell us about that. Yes, I am a AAAS if then ambassador. So, the American Association for the Advancement of Science is this really large organization whose goal it is to advance science. And Lyda Hill was able to donate a lot of money to start what is called the If Then Ambassadorship Program. And this program is a group of over 125 women scientists and innovators who are at the forefront of science. And our job as an ambassador is to be the face of science and show young girls and boys out there that women can be scientists and make really huge impacts in the work that they do in and related to science. So definitely be sure to follow If Then and keep up to date on all of the amazing work that other ambassadors are doing. We love reaching out to kids and talking about all of the really cool work that we're doing. So definitely be sure to check us out and continue to follow us. Catherine Booth asks, my daughter, Imogen, is concerned that going outside at all is not safe. Is it safe to play in our gardens and yards if it's on our property? Is it safe to go on a car trip? Yeah, I totally get that, Imogen. It's everything that we're hearing right now can be really freaky and really scary, and outside can seem like a really unsafe place. But it is safe for you to go outside, and you really should go outside. We need sunlight, we need fresh air, we need to move our bodies. So it is safe for you to go outside. Just be sure to continue to practice appropriate physical distancing, which is about 6 feet from people who are not in your immediate family. So not 6 feet from your mom or dad. But making sure that you're not going to have play dates with friends, and be sure to definitely go outside, enjoy nature. It is safe for you to be outside, and it would be really sad to stay inside all day for this long. So please do go outside. Marta Knoll asks, my son sings the wheels on the bus while washing hands. Is this okay? I think you should iterate it, go through it a few times just to make sure that you're hitting that 20-second mark. I guess if you're going through all the swishes and all the different noises that the wheels on the bus make, you probably will hit that 20-second mark. So I think that's actually another pretty good suggestion. Just make sure that you time it out, make sure it's 20 seconds, and whatever song fits that 20-second mark for you, sing your heart out, definitely. But yeah, hand washing is really important, and it's one of our biggest defenses to protect ourselves from these viruses. And staying at home and washing our hands is really like the biggest thing that we can do just as regular citizens of the world to help others and make sure that other people are not getting sick. And also making sure that we're protecting our doctors and nurses who are working so hard to take care of the people who are sick. By doing our part, we're going to decrease the flow of people going into hospitals and make their jobs a lot easier. So that's really important too. I just want to remind everyone to click on the link in the description of this video and tell us how we're doing. We really want to hear from you, and we would love to bring you more scientist discussions. So if you want to hear from more ambassadors like me, if you want to hear more about bats, we have a really great bat scientist who is also a AAAS ambassador as well. We would love to continue to have these conversations with you. So definitely give us feedback and let us know so we can bring you more of this. Sybil Cara asks, does soap kill the virus? The answer to that is, that's a really good question. Soap helps us by washing the virus off of our hands. And soap is a detergent, which means it breaks different things up. I'm not really 100% sure if it actually kills the virus, because when a virus is not inside of a cell, it's not actually alive. But soap is important for making sure that we don't have viruses on our hands and aren't or on different surfaces as well, and are continuing to transmit these different virus particles. So soap is really important for stopping the spread of this virus. Yasmina asks, what are the best practices when coming back from outside? Should I change my clothes or shower? That's a really good point. We have been learning a lot and are continuing to learn a lot more about how this virus is getting transmitted and whether or not we can carry it on our clothes, on our phone, on our shoes even. So what I have been doing personally whenever I come back from inside is I just immediately take off like my jacket, my sneakers, and kind of leave them over by the door. I go straight to the sink and I wash my hands before I touch anything else in my apartment. And I also try to wipe down my phone or anything else that I've been touching while I've been outside. So just trying to make sure as we learn more and more about how this virus is getting transmitted, that you're doing your best to lessen the amount of exposure that you're bringing inside from being outside. Shauna says, Dorothy's hair is so pretty. Thank you so much, Shauna. I've definitely been struggling because I would like to go outside and get a haircut. Um, but that's been something that I haven't been able to do for a while since sheltering in place. So we're all, making these small sacrifices. And what helps me feel better about not keeping up my hair as much as I would like to is that I know that I'm making a really huge impact by following these guidelines and sheltering in place. So whatever sacrifices you guys are making right now, if it's not hanging out with your friends, not seeing your grandparents, not going to school, just know that it's making a really huge impact, and we're really counting on you guys to contribute to this huge global effort to slow down the spread of this virus. What you're doing is really, really important. So definitely please keep it up. And I'm right there with you. Like, this is definitely a struggle. I just want to remind everyone also to please subscribe to the Goldieblox channel. Hit that red subscribe button. We have tons of videos on really cool activities that you can do at home, actually, with your parents. So it would be definitely cool to keep up to date with Goldieblox and hear more about the different science discussions that we're going to have, and also learn about different activities that you can do while you're stuck in the house. Talk a little bit more about what I've been doing. Speaking of different activities, I've been spending lots of time with Nala, who you guys saw earlier. She's my cat. She's 5 years old, and I rescued her from a shelter when I moved here for grad school. And we've been having lots of play and cuddle time, which I think she appreciates a lot. And when I'm not spending time with Nala, I am making sure to connect with all of my friends who I miss so much. So we've had tons of FaceTime calls and Zoom meetings and movie nights, and just really leaning into all of the different ways that we can continue to connect and support each other as we're going through this super rough time. And I would definitely encourage you guys to think about different ways that you can reach out to your friends, either through writing letters or FaceTime or Skype if you can do that, just so you don't feel super alone and isolated while doing this physical distancing. Mott's Clara asks, can the coronavirus mutate like the flu mutates? Yeah, that's a really, really advanced scientific question. But the answer to that is yes. All viruses, really pretty much all organisms, have the capacity to mutate. And it is possible that this coronavirus is probably mutating now as it's in people, but I don't think it's a whole lot to worry about just yet. We don't know what the exact mutation rates are, or how often this virus is mutating. But I don't think that trying to compare it to the flu is going to be really helpful, just because there are two different viruses and behave in two different ways. So yes, the coronavirus does mutate just like the flu virus mutates, but we don't know if that means that it's going to kind of continue to come back seasonally like the flu does. Savannah asks, why is it called COVID-19? What's the 19, right? That's a really good question. So COVID-19 is an acronym, which basically means you're putting together the first couple of letters of words that we think are important. So the COVID part comes from coronavirus disease. And the 19 comes from 2019, which is the year that it was actually first identified in people. So while this is really affecting us a whole lot here in the United States right now, this virus has been circulating in people since potentially last fall, maybe even earlier. So the 19 is from 2019, meaning the year that it was discovered. Charlie asks, what song do you sing to yourself when you wash your hands? Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not a great singer, so I'm happy that I can do all of my singing in the privacy of my bathroom or my kitchen sink. But the song that I like to sing is the birthday song, and I sing it 2 times to make sure that I hit that 20-second mark. But I'm getting lots of suggestions in here. Guys, definitely in the comments, put in your suggestions of what your favorite song to sing is to make sure that you're washing your hands for 20 seconds. Because if you're going to be spending so much time washing your hands, it shouldn't be like a miserable process, right? Like, I think any way that you can make it fun for you and make sure that you're doing it for the appropriate amount of time, I definitely recommend. Huamei G asks, would it help to wear gloves in addition to a face mask when buying groceries? Is it necessary to sanitize the cart and groceries? Yeah, there are a lot of different recommendations on what to do when you're buying groceries or doing other things outside where you're interacting with more people than you normally would while you're self isolating or physically distancing. I think it's definitely a good idea to sanitize the cart before you use it, just because so many other people are also running to the grocery store, and the best that you can do to like remove any potential viruses on that surface before you start touching it, I would definitely encourage. And lots of grocery stores are actually already on top of this, and they have little wipes right next to the carts that you can use to wipe down the handle part. So I would encourage that as well. As far as gloves, um, yes, gloves definitely will help keep your hands protected from the outside. And if that's something that you want to do to help yourself feel more safe, then I think it's totally fine to wear gloves. I think it's really important, though, to make sure that you take those gloves off before you do anything like touch your phone, your car keys, your car, the door to your house. Because remember, your hand is now, or the glove is taking the place of your hand and is potentially contaminated with virus. So if you are using gloves, just make sure to take them off and change them before you touch anything that you're going to touch with your ungloved hand. Sunfrog asks, am I married to Batman? I was gonna say I wish, but I don't know because he seems to have a pretty hard job. No, I am not married to Batman, but Batman is definitely a pretty cool superhero role model to have because he realized that as a regular person, he had a lot of impact on the world. And so he used the impact that he had to kind of go out and fight crime. And that's something that we can do as regular people, not necessarily fighting crime, but we also have a really important role to play in fighting this virus. So I think very similar to Batman, I feel really empowered to make an impact in the world by using the choices that I make to help others and make a difference. Jessica Bollinger asks, do animals die from coronavirus? That's a really good question. Um, I'm not quite sure of the answer to that, actually. I have not heard of many cases of animals that have died from this coronavirus in particular. And I'm also not very sure about whether coronaviruses in general kill animals. Other members of the coronavirus family include the cold that we also get every year. And we know that like colds can also come from other animals. And though colds make us pretty sick, they don't kill us very often. So I think because there are so many different kinds of coronaviruses, it's definitely possible that they also make animals get sick and die. but I'm not 100% sure how many animals do die from coronavirus. Okay. So thank you guys so much for asking all of these really great questions. This has been such an amazing conversation. You guys are asking really important questions. Definitely make sure to continue talking to your parents and getting as much information from them as you can. Um, Thank you guys so much for just being so engaged and involved. This is really awesome. I've had a great time doing this. Um, Cases are on the rise right now, and it's definitely starting to peak. And you guys are going to be hearing a lot about this peak and about this curve and how we need to flatten the curve. But thinking about this peak is not at all a reason to panic. It's definitely going to feel really scary, and a lot of people will get sick. But it's important to know that as humankind, we have experienced pandemics like this before, and we have come out on the other side. And also, there are so many positive things that are happening in light of this that I really want to share and kind of talk about the things that have been giving me hope as I've been sometimes kind of freaked out about all of the news that I'm hearing. So, three of the things that have really been helping me stay hopeful and grounded in this is one, knowing that scientists and doctors and nurses are working so hard to help people who are currently sick get better and stop new people from getting sick. And lastly, coming up with a vaccine. And I feel really proud to be a part of this community that's working so hard to keep people healthy. The second point that has been really helping me stay hopeful is how many acts of kindness I've seen and heard about in terms of helping everyone manage this really difficult season. So people are like buying others plane tickets to make sure that they can get home to their families. Um, Stores are donating coffee to doctors and nurses. Um, just lots of acts of kindness. So any act of kindness that you think you can do for your parents or for your friends, maybe writing them a note or something, I think that'll really help make this a more bearable and really encouraging time. And lastly, the third thing that has been keeping me grounded in this season is leaning into all of the different creative ways that we get to connect with each other now. Um, because we're not physically around each other, we can think of different cool ways to show our friends and our families and our loved ones that we love them and care about them. And that could be through FaceTime or Skype or sending letters or picking up groceries for your grandparents and dropping them off, or maybe going to visit grandparents or friends and kind of waving outside of the window. Just to take the extra step to show people that, you know, we're physically apart, but we're still in this together. And I think that's what's going to really help us make it through with all of our wits about us. And we will get through this, guys. So definitely hold on to that hope because it's really important to have. Um, Everyone wants to see Nala again. She's hiding out. I think she's taking a cat nap. All of this excitement has been a lot for her. But I would definitely give her a big hug for you guys. Um, Again, make sure that you please click the link in the description box and give us feedback on how you like this. We would definitely love to bring you more discussions from scientists like me, hopefully other AAAS If Then ambassadors. That would be really awesome. Um, um, Also, shout out to If Then and Goldieblox. Thank you guys so much for having me. This has been really amazing. I'm really happy to have gotten to help answer your questions about bats and viruses and really help hopefully provide some encouragement to you guys as we're going to face what's going forward. Remember, please, to subscribe to Goldieblox channel and make sure to stay up to date for more videos. Thanks, guys, so much. This is all that time I have. See ya. Bye.